There are so many things in the Season 2 developer stream for Diablo 4 that I'm basically just going to break down a bunch of videos going over all the different systems that it touches on. When I can roll everything up into one big video, I'm going to do that. When I can't roll everything up into one big video, I'm going to do a deep dive on the one concept. And one of the first videos that need to go over a deep dive on a particular change that they're making is how item power and items in general are going to scale their item power, how easy it is going to be to get them, the ways that you can intentionally farm higher item power items, and the impact that those things are going to have. So first and foremost, item power now goes up to a maximum of 920, whereas previously basically the maximum item power you could realistically have on an item was 820. Now there were ways to get higher item power from the super rare, unique monsters, and they eventually took that out so that they don't roll any higher. But if you're somebody who saw them before, everybody was going gaga trying to get like item power 840 two-handed weapons, because even if the stats on the weapon aren't that great, just increasing the item power of a weapon is the biggest overall multiplier that you can put on your kit, since it literally changes the base amount of damage that everything else gets multiplied by. Similarly, getting higher item power gear like armor and helmets and gloves, etc., increases the base armor value on it. And while a lot of things are going to look different in Season 2, there's going to be a complete overhaul of resistances. Basically, armor was the best defensive stat that you could have because it decreased all incoming damage, and the more of it you got, the better each point of armor you're able to stack actually became. So now that items can go up to item power 920 and then be upgraded up to 945, what is the legitimate impact on damage numbers on weapons and defense values on armor? So that's something that we really need to look at first. So I went and of course I made a Google Doc sheet with a bunch of numbers on it that I'm going to break down very quickly just so that you can see it. So here we have our item power increase impact sheet. We were able to derive all of our numbers from the Diablo 4 planner, which was already able to go up to a maximum of 999 item power. Basically, if you don't know, if you have an item at 820 item power and you look at the damage on it, it currently does 1242 damage per second. And then if you increase it, it goes up to 1252. This is a 1.002, or this is a 1.008% increase for every 2 item power. Don't worry about that. Basically what it means is every item power that you increases that damage number. So coming back to our chart, knowing that 920 is going to be the maximum value of an item that can be dropped in the game, we're going to look at that number versus what it previously was to get an idea of just how overly powerful the characters have become in comparison to Season 1 and pre-season. And while the chart here is nice and I just wanted to have a full chart, I had to go through and manually generate all these because I just couldn't make a little system where it would auto-generate for me. What you need to understand is that the end result of this system would leave us with an item power 920 weapon and an item power 920 armor. We would then be able to increase that by upgrading 5 times up to a total item power of 945. So if the previous highest realistic item power weapon that you could get was 820, meaning 845, you used to do 2741 damage per second and used to have 1479 armor. On an item power 945 item, you're now looking at a 3978 damage per second value and a 1654 armor value. That means that every single character across the board, compared to what your gear used to be able to have and looking at what your gear now will be able to have, as long as they don't change anything else about itemization as far as these numbers scaling ranges goes, means that it's a 45% increase in our overall damage. It's a 1.45 total multiplier of all of our damage on all of our skills and all of our abilities, etc. And on top of that, it is a 12% or a 1.12 multiplier of all of our armor values. So the damage reduction from that right now, the resistance and the elemental damage reduction of that just increased by 12%. We're doing basically 1.5 times damage. Cool, awesome, great. Very simple breakdown, but the changes that they made go even further. So I want to talk about how we even get to this number 920, how we even start at this number 870. If the old maximum was 845, why are we even starting on 870? Well, they're changing how monsters actually drop items in the game. Now, while they were talking on stream, this first line right here, higher level monsters in World Tier 3 and World Tier 4 are going to drop items of higher item power potential. While the numbers aren't here, luckily Joe Propora was willing to give us the breakdown. So in World Tier 3, starting at Sacred level 55, you're going to be seeing monsters drop the normal item power range that they were expected to be dropping at that time. every monster level that you increase, so starting at level 56, the minimum and the maximum item power potential of that piece of gear is going to increase by 2. So the monster you kill that's level 55 versus the monster that you kill at level 56. The monster that's level 56 is going to drop a higher item power minimum. So literally just the gear you get for killing a higher level monster is just on average better. And the potential, the highest item value power is going to be 2 higher. So they just have the potential of dropping better gear than any previous monster that you've ever killed. In World Tier 4, the same thing's going to happen. A monster at level 75 is going to drop the average item power range that we were kind of expecting. Then starting at level 76, the minimum gate is going to increase by 2 item power, and the maximum item gate is going to increase by 2 item power. And this goes all the way up to level 100. And you might ask, well, what about at level 100? If I'm only dropping, item power 920 is the maximum potential, what's the purpose of killing monsters above level 100? Doesn't that mean I just stop right there? Well, no, they thought ahead. They considered this option. And every monster level above 100, so starting at 101, will increase the minimum item power. So a monster at level 100 here right now will be dropping you a maximum item power of 920. But let's say the minimum item power that they would have dropped was 850. Let's just use that number because I don't have the exact numbers. I'm not sure that they give us the exact numbers. I can comb through the video again, but I don't think that we have the current exact numbers. A level 100 monster could drop anywhere between 850 and 920. So that's a pretty big range, right? And since we don't currently have any understanding of the weights, and I think it's just a fair chance of you dropping any of them, 1 in 70 of dropping the highest possible item level is kind of rough. That's not great. Having the chase items, that's obviously very good. I want to get that maximum item. But again, what's the value of killing anything above level 100 since monsters that are above level 100 get harder and harder to fight? A level 101 monster is going to drop a minimum item power of +1. So if our level 100 monster was dropping an average of 850, the monster that's level 101 will drop a minimum of 851. This goes all the way up to the highest level monster that you can currently fight, which is level 154, meaning +54 to the minimum item power. In this example that we're using right now, if you were to kill a level 154 monster, that means that gear that they drop will be minimum item power 904 with a maximum of 920. So now it's a 1 in 16 chance that the item that you're dropping will be the maximum item power. And even still, any monster that you kill will be dropping gear that was 84 item power higher than anything you had ever dropped in the past. So luckily now, nightmare dungeons are getting an even larger boost in the overall value of killing monsters in them, because it's going to be a place to not only farm your glyph experience, but also be able to consistently kill monsters that are always dropping over 900 item power as a base minimum, and going to have incredibly good odds of dropping items that are maximum of 920 item power. Now, I already hear you typing in the comments, oh my god, they just only want us to run Nightmare Dungeons, there's no reason to do the overworld. There's a whole other video that I'll make as to the impact of everything on the overworld, but since we're talking about items in the item power here, I wanted to touch on this since we got insight into how item power is being bolstered in overworld events and overworld systems. So first, most notably, the Tree of Whispers, your Whisper caches, are also going to have a bump up in the item power of the gear that it drops. So right now, when a Whisper cache looks at your character, it checks your character's level to determine the item power range. The item power range of gear that are going to be dropped from caches will be +10 item power. So as if instead of your character, the monsters that you were killing were 5 levels above you. Meaning that if you're a level 100 character and is using that as the basis, it's going to be dropping gear as if the monster was level 105. So just for the base cache, you're already going to get a bump up in item power. This can never exceed, for any of these systems, it can never exceed the maximum of the 920 item power. But just by doing a cache, in comparison to the monsters that you would typically be killing to accomplish your caches, they're going to be read as if it was 5 levels higher. And on top of that, whenever you get a legendary cache, that special one that has like a 1 in 10 chance of happening or something like that, those items that are dropped are going to have an item power of +20. So as if the monsters that were being killed to get the cache were 10 levels higher than they were before these changes were done. Similarly, when opening up a Helltide cache, those values and those items that you're going to get as rewards are also item power 20 higher than they were previously. So it's as if you're killing monsters that are 10 levels higher than that as well. And since both the caches and the Helltide chests are going to scale off the player character base level, that means that you can still get items that are exceeding your character level in total item power. So they're already at the cusp that's required to be able to hit the maximum item power of 920. And then without the ability to know exactly how these systems are currently in play, if you're getting the legendary cache or a Helltide cache, it might be as if the monsters that you're killing were level 110, which is increasing, again, that minimum item power that the cached items can actually drop at. So you know you're always getting a minimum value out of the gear that's dropping. You're never going to be hitting these like super low item power pieces of gear ever again, because all of it's going to be scaling and always be higher than the scaled level that it dropped at. And just remember, this is not a seasonal change. This isn't something that only applies to seasonal characters who are dropping gear, doing nightmare dungeons, doing whispers, and doing Helltide events. This is just a change to the base game and the logic for how items and gear and loot are generated. So eternal characters are going to be able to enjoy the benefits of these higher item power pieces of gear. You're not going to have to wait for the season to churn over or anything like that, as well as people who choose to participate in this season will obviously be able to enjoy the increase in power. Even just increasing the minimum damage potential and the minimum survivability potential of every single build equally without needing to actually impact any of the skills that are going to be changed as well is going to have disproportionate increases, right? You know, one-shotting a monster with Bone Spear before, you're not going to one-shot them harder, but that Blood Lance build, depending on how they change overpower, since they said that they were reworking it, may be able to better handle DPS output, may be able to just survive better on squishier classes that previously were just kind of like suffering a lot. So keep that in mind as we're walking into both the 1010 stream as well as the season itself. Characters are going to feel different, your progression is going to feel different, getting up to level 100 and then continuing to progress into harder content is going to feel different and hopefully more rewarding. But I just want to give this more like analytical breakdown of exactly what those numbers look like and exactly how these systems are going to change, because right now it's very esoteric. It's kind of difficult to really pinpoint exactly what the impact is, and at least right now you got these numbers right here to go, okay, boom, that's going to happen. So thank you so much for watching. I really do hope that this helped to contextualize these changes, give you better insight into what the potential impact of this is going to be. And as always, look forward to more information coming out about the season 2 changes and eventually this season itself. But again, thank you so much for watching this video. I truly hope that it helps, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.